Hey everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. Coming up on this week's episode, Microsoft moves to block Windows 11 24H2 on some devices. Also, a roundup of Patch Tuesday news, and several new developments in the generative AI market. For this and more, keep listening to this episode of the podcast, which of course, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. And that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops. And of course, also brought to you by Master Packager, who make an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. Another month, another Patch Tuesday, and this month's Patch Tuesday addressed 118 flaws, including 5 publicly disclosed zero-day vulnerabilities, 2 of which are being actively exploited. For a complete roundup of the vulnerabilities patched in this month's Windows updates, it includes 28 elevation of privilege vulnerabilities, 7 security feature bypass vulnerabilities, 43 remote code execution vulnerabilities, 6 information disclosure vulnerabilities, 26 denial of service vulnerabilities, and 7 spoofing vulnerabilities. Just to highlight a couple of the vulnerabilities patched this month, I'll start with CVE-2024-43573, and this is a Windows MS-HTML platform spoofing vulnerability. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of information shared about this one by Microsoft, but this is one of those vulnerabilities that is being actively exploited. Microsoft stated it involved the MS-HTML platform previously used by Internet Explorer and legacy Microsoft Edge, whose components are still available in Windows, saying that while Microsoft has announced retirement of IE11 applications on certain platforms and the Microsoft Edge legacy application is now deprecated, the underlying MS-HTML, Edge HTML, and scripting platforms are still supported. The MS-HTML platform is used by Internet Explorer mode in Microsoft Edge, as well as other applications through web browser control. The Edge HTML platform is used by WebView and some UWP applications. The scripting platforms are used by MS-HTML and Edge HTML, but can also be used by other legacy applications. While not confirmed, this could be a bypass of a previous vulnerability that abused MS-HTML to spoof file extensions in alerts displayed when opening files, and that's one that I covered on a previous episode of the podcast. Another one to highlight is CVE-2024-43572, and this is a Microsoft Management Console remote code execution vulnerability. This flaw allowed malicious Microsoft saved console files, or MSC files, to perform remote code execution on vulnerable devices. Microsoft fixed the flaw by preventing untrusted MSC files from being opened. The security update will prevent untrusted Microsoft saved console files from being opened to protect customers against the risks associated with this vulnerability, according to Microsoft. Sleepycomputer.com reports it is unknown how this flaw has been actively exploited. So those are the 2 that are currently being actively exploited. And it's interesting because MS-HTML seems to come up quite frequently, and I wonder how long that MMC snap-in or MMC file vulnerability has existed, because not having any security around those files being opened does seem like a major blind spot in Windows security. Of course, as always, other vendors, including the likes of Mozilla and Adobe and more, have also released their own patches in line with Patch Tuesday. And as also usually the case, I'll probably be covering more stories about potential fallout from the Windows updates in the coming weeks. Microsoft has blocked Windows 11 24H2 upgrades on some systems because of known issues causing Asphalt 8 games to crash and easy anti-cheat blue screens, with Microsoft saying updating the games may resolve the issues. So very specific to gamers, at least on this one. Microsoft added 2 compatibility holds to prevent the Windows 11 2024 update from being offered to Windows 11 22H2 and 23H2 devices affected by these gaming issues. Customers are also advised not to manually upgrade impacted systems using the Media Creation tool or Windows 11 Install Assistant until the known issues are addressed. Microsoft is also blocking Windows 11 24H2 upgrades on systems with incompatible Intel Smart Sound Technology audio drivers due to blue screen of death issues. So this one seems to be much more likely to cause impact for enterprise customers. Only devices with both an Intel 11th generation core processor and an Intel SST driver version of 10.29.0.5152 or 10.30.0.5152 are affected by this issue, and you're advised to check for updated drivers from your hardware vendor of choice for this particular audio driver. And I would have thought before this year that enterprises still running systems with Intel 11th generation core processors would be unlikely, but with the Windows 11 adoption rate being so slow and hearing from enterprises that they have such old hardware that it's not compatible, and it's like not even just a couple years older than you might expect, it's many years older than I might expect, that it's possible this could affect some enterprises. Granted, I would think if they're on an 11th generation core processor, they at least have to have a TPM chip in order to take Windows 11 in the first place. But obviously some do, because otherwise this wouldn't be a story. In addition, Microsoft also added Windows 11 24H2 upgrade blocks and devices with the Safe Exam browser applications, some fingerprint sensors with incompatible firmware, and wallpaper customization applications, which I believe is one that I covered on a previous episode of the podcast a few months ago, that there's certain wallpaper customization applications that are troublesome on Windows 11. An issue caused by July patches where the RD gateway service kept crashing every 30 minutes, causing remote desktop connections to be interrupted, has been resolved for all affected Windows Server versions with this month's patches. So if that is something that is affecting you, you'll want to check out this month's Windows updates as soon as possible. In an update to a story from last week's episode, where those with the Citrix app protection feature enabled faced issues on Windows 11 24H2, a fix for this issue is now available with Citrix Workspace App 2405.11 and Citrix Workspace App 2402 CU1 Hotfix 1 for those using LTSR. These versions are now available to download on the Citrix website. Cloudflare reported the largest volumetric denial of service attempt ever recorded at 3.8 terabits per second. The assault consisted of a month-long barrage with many of the attacks aimed at the target's network infrastructure and exceeded 2 billion packets per second and 3 terabits per second. BleepyComputer.com reported the campaign utilized various types of routers, including some from Asus and even some DVR appliances too. I guess just like ransomware attacks, denial of service attacks are growing larger and more threatening too. Luckily in this case, the report is coming from Cloudflare saying that they blocked this, so it should not have impacted services in any big way. BleepyComputer.com has reported that Google has taken the step to remove Kasperskey's Android security apps from the Google Play Store, and they've disabled the company's developers' accounts. The apps are no longer available in the US and various other regions. For their side, a Kaspersky spokesperson said, quote, Kaspersky is currently investigating the circumstances behind the issue and exploring potential solutions to ensure that users of its products can continue downloading and updating their applications from Google Play. End quote. While the apps are unavailable, Kaspersky advised users to install them from alternative app stores, including the Galaxy Store, Huawei, App Gallery, and more. The company's security apps can also be installed by downloading the .apk installation file from Kaspersky's own website. And obviously this follows Kaspersky's move to actually stealthily update people's antivirus solution to a different product after the US moved to take action against the software company based on its ties to Russia. In a post on the official Windows blog, Microsoft announced a new API that will allow third-party companies to add support for their own passkey services in Windows, including the likes of 1Password and Bitwarden. Microsoft has also designed the user interface of Windows Hello for the creation and use of passkeys according to neowin.net. That means when you use a Windows PC to go to a website that supports the use of a passkey to sign in, the Windows Hello UI will show you how you could save the passkey to your Microsoft account or via another method. You can then assign how to unlock the passkey via facial recognition, fingerprint, or PIN to sign into the site. Passkeys will also reportedly sync across Windows 11 desktops in future too, and all these features will be coming to insiders of Windows 11 first. So not available immediately by the sounds of things, but will be coming soon. In a 32-page filing, lawyers for the U.S. Department of Justice said they are considering both behavioral and structural remedies for Alphabet, the parent company of Google, after the recent antitrust ruling against the company. The overarching goal is to stop Google from using products such as Chrome, Play, and Android to advantage Google Search and Google Search-related products and features, including emerging search access points and features such as AI over rivals or new entrants. The way they may achieve this is by breaking up Google, forcing them to sell off parts of its business. In a response from Google on its blog, they claimed the proposed framework goes well beyond the legal scope of the court's decision about search distribution contracts, and that splitting off Chrome and Android would break them. Google claims that billions of people get online thanks to Chrome and Android existing as free products, and that few companies would have the ability or incentive to keep them open source or to invest in them at the same level that Google does. It's interesting, this move is coming at a time when arguably Google are possibly in their weakest position in decades, as they are falling behind in the AI race right now, but I guess even so, they do have that captive audience through Google Search and also obviously Android and their other products. So they do have the potential to maybe leapfrog the competition by just having that captive audience to pitch their AI services to. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and this is not the first time the threat of breaking up Google has been made, but this one comes after they lost the antitrust suit, so the threats may have more legs right now than ever before. MercuryNews.com has reported that Cognizant have lost a ruling in a class action lawsuit that revolved around claims the firm abused the H-1B visa process with claims they intentionally discriminated against non-Indian workers. So for those who are not US based and maybe not familiar with the H-1B visa program, it has been used for several years in the US by companies to hire Indian tech workers. The lawsuit claimed Cognizant ousted many non-Indian workers by first taking them off projects and benching them without work, then keeping them benched until firing them in accordance with a company policy. Cognizant said Monday that it was disappointed with the verdict and they would appeal. And I'll share a link to the news article from Mercury News with this episode, which is episode 355 at 5bytespodcast.com, but it details, I believe, 3 different individuals who went through job processes or job application processes, and they detailed their experiences, which was used as evidence against Cognizant. I mean, I've seen kind of the flip side in my experience working in the US. The flip side being I've seen H-1B visa workers coming from India and being treated horribly by employers. I felt they were unfairly taken advantage of, and personally I found it pretty sickening. So the H-1B visa program is definitely not without its flaws. Ars Technica has reported that Microsoft unveiled updates to its consumer AI assistant Copilot, introducing 2 new experimental features for a limited group of the $20 per month Copilot Pro subscribers, called Copilot Labs and Copilot Vision. Labs integrates OpenAI's latest O1 reasoning model, and Vision allows Copilot to see what you're browsing in Edge. Microsoft says Copilot Labs will serve as a testing ground for Microsoft's latest AI tools before they see their wider release. And Copilot Vision aims to give the AI assistant a visual window into what you're doing with Edge, and when enabled, Copilot can understand the page you're viewing and answer questions about its content. The company positions Copilot Vision as a way to provide more natural interactions and task assistance beyond text-based prompts, but it will likely raise privacy concerns. As a result, Microsoft says Copilot Vision is entirely opt-in and that no audio, images, text, or conversations from Vision will be stored or used for training. The company is also initially limiting Vision's use to a pre-approved list of websites, blocking it on paywalled and sensitive content. The rollout of these features appears to be gradual. That's interesting that they're blocking it on websites that are paywalled, because currently there is a feature within Copilot in Edge where you can get it to summarize a news article, and at least the last time I tried it, which I think is over 2 months ago, it did provide a summary even of a paywalled article. It's also interesting that they're saying they're not going to store things like images and conversations and that. That means they're still processing, they're just not storing it. So I could definitely see why there would be privacy concerns. OpenAI unveiled Canvas, its new feature that has an interface for ChatGPT designed to enhance collaboration on writing and coding projects. The feature bears similarities to a feature called Artifacts in Anthropic's Claude AI assistant that was introduced back in June. Canvas displays content in a separate window alongside the AI chat history, allowing users to keep an eye on working document drafts or programming code while collaborating with the AI assistant. Ars Technica reports that OpenAI began rolling out Canvas to ChatGPT Plus and team users globally last Thursday, while enterprise and education users will gain access this week. Like Artifacts, Canvas is sort of a scratch pad, a way to visually separate portions of the active working context, which is the user prompts, to keep them from getting lost in the chat backlog. The new Canvas feature uses a special version of ChatGPT's 4.0, the Omni version, that users can manually select from the model picker in the ChatGPT interface while it's still undergoing its public testing. Canvas opens automatically when ChatGPT detects a scenario where it could be helpful, so it should help to streamline the process. Like if you're not familiar with it and you don't even want to learn about it, you'll be prompted when it might come in useful, so you could try it then. And users can also trigger Canvas by including use Canvas in their prompts or use it to work on an existing project. I think this is cool because one of my biggest use cases at the moment is for like doing PowerShell scripting and getting some useful tips for rewriting some of my scripts. And finally, in the news for this week, after the most recent round of funding worth a further $6.6 billion, OpenAI is now valued at $157 billion, nearly doubling its previous valuation of $86 billion, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. Reportedly, investors had to commit at least $250 million to just see OpenAI's financials before the round of funding. Microsoft, for their part, threw in another $13 billion, so they've increased their investment significantly. Well, that's it for this week's news. Let's get on to the scripts, tricks, and tips. Going to keep it short this week for the scripts, tricks, and tips because I'm not feeling well. And the tip this week is, if you're in the US or somewhere near Maryland, consider attending the first EUC World event, which will be on October 22nd and 23rd. There will be many great speakers at the event, and you still have time to sign up and register to attend. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening.